Hello there, I'm MrEliMac, and this is the show where I fantasy book a storyline in wrestling that I think would be cool to see, whether it be the past, the present, or the future. And before I get into the idea, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. It really helps the channel a lot. Also, hit the notification bell, that way you can be notified whenever a new fantasy booking video like this goes live. Now, I'm going to be honest, I really like the United States Championship. I really do. And when I started watching wrestling in late 2005, I was a SmackDown kid. I loved watching Eddie Guerrero in the short amount of time that we had left with him, feuding with Batista, the Eddie Guerrero-Batista feud. I really enjoyed seeing that. It was a lot of fun. And I also enjoyed the Booker T, Chris Benoit feud for the United States Championship. And man, they both were really good. They were really good in the ring, and it just sucks that Chris Benoit had to attain it all in the future. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the United States Championship, and it was a title that I held as the best mid-card title because, again, I was a SmackDown guy. I really thought the United States title was better than the Intercontinental title in the late 2000s, the mid to late 2000s. And if we focus on the people that won the title during that time, late 2000, mid to late 2005 to early 2006, Chris Benoit won the title from Orlando Jordan. Booker T won it from Chris Benoit. Then Booker T won it again after Randy Orton beat Chris Benoit because Booker T was injured. Yeah, that was the best of 7 series. And then Chris Benoit beat Booker T at No Way Out. And then JBL beat Benoit at WrestleMania. Look, I didn't say they were all great, but you can't deny that the mid-card division on SmackDown wasn't amazing. Another time the mid-card division was great on SmackDown was during 2002, and I know a lot of people don't like the early aggression era, or any of the Ruthless aggression era at that, but I grew up watching during that era, and I loved some of that. Mainly the great wrestling, not the horrible diva storylines, the Al Wilson, Dawn Marie, Tori Wilson stuff. It's just garbage, and I don't like talking about it. And we're not going to talk about that. And however, what we are going to talk about is that SmackDown never had a mid-card title until 2003 when the United States title debuted. But what if the United States title debuted at Vengeance 2002? And why specifically Vengeance 2002? Well, that was the pay-per-view that really emphasized the importance of SmackDown and Raw being 2 separate brands. And so, without further ado, let's debut the United States Championship in 2002. First off, it's important to note that the design of the title when it debuted in 2003 will be the design of it now, or at least of it debuting in 2002. It just makes it easier for me to visualize that title specifically. Also, this booking will go all the way to Vengeance 2003 when the title actually debuted with Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero. So just know that we are going to end with that match. That will be the match that we are ending. Also, I'm just going to say right now, if I get any of the rosters wrong, I am very sorry. I'm just basing it off of where some of the wrestlers were booked during this time. So if I get any of the roster separation wrong, I truly apologize. So, we're starting out on the June 24th episode of Monday Night Raw. Vince McMahon announces that there will be a new title introduced, and the purpose to add more competition and more aggression and yada yada yada, stuff like that. Ruthless aggression. That's why we're getting a new title. And so there will be a tournament to determine who will be the champion. Also, I just like tournaments, so there's going to be a tournament. There are going to be 8 competitors in total, 4 from Raw and 4 from SmackDown. The winner of this tournament will win that title for their brand, and that title will be exclusive to whatever brand it's on. The first matches will happen on the next SmackDown. So SmackDown comes around, and the first match is Lance Storm versus Mark Henry. Now, I bet you're wondering why I've chosen those 2 in particular. Lance Storm I've chosen because having a Canadian fight for the U.S. title is just a great idea to me, and Mark Henry has a lot of backstory with being a part of the USA weightlifting group, and so I just thought it made sense. And the 2 fight, and Lance Storm wins the match due to shenanigans, and he advances on to the semifinals of his side of the SmackDown bracket. And then next up we have Test versus Rikishi, and again for Test it's basically the same story as Lance Storm. And plus, he's tag team partners with Lance Storm, so I think that really works. The Un-Americans, the Canadians, and because that's the story that WWE likes to do. If you're not American, then boo you. But then we have Rikishi, who is being given a massive push at this point. I mean, if you go back and watch 2002 SmackDown, Rikishi is a major feature during this period. Ultimately, the end of this match is Test doing some dirty tactics, the referee is watching all these dirty tactics, and he purposely shoves the referee, and Test gets disqualified, and Rikishi advances into the semifinals of the SmackDown side of the bracket. Now, I know it's upsetting to have match end via disqualifications, but I really wanted this to also be a little bit believable in the terms of the WWE's, because, you know, WWE likes to have disqualifications in their matches. So, anyway, Lance Storm and Rikishi advance to the semifinals of the SmackDown side of the tournament. Now, over on Raw, we get our first sort of matches for the tournament. On the Raw side, the tournament begins with Chris Benoit versus William Regal. The entire match is a technical masterpiece, at least in my mind, and Benoit is able to get the win, forcing Regal to tap out to the crippler crossface. And later on, the next match in the tournament is Booker T versus Big Show, and Booker T is able to get the win, advancing into the tournament due to Big Show being counted out. And so the semifinals are set for Raw. It's going to be Chris Benoit versus Booker T. And on SmackDown, it's going to be Lance Storm versus Rikishi. And now we're back to SmackDown. It is July 4th. That is the episode. So, of course, we're going to be getting a lot of USA chants against Lance Storm and the Un-Americans, you know, all those Canadian peoples, which in the Un-Americans, it's basically the team of Test, Lance Storm, and Christian. At the time, that is the team. And so Lance Storm and Rikishi starts off the show, and the audience is firmly behind Rikishi because, again, WWE loves to book people who are not American as the villains. And so Storm gets the upper hand for a majority of the match because Tess and Christian are in his corner and they're trying to interfere and sway things in his favor. But due to too much interference, Mark Henry comes out and fights off Christian and Tess. And so this distracts Lance Storm to the point where Rikishi is able to hit a super kick and get the 1-2-3, and Rikishi advances to the finals at Vengeance. On Raw, Booker T versus Chris Benoit happens to start the show, and Eddie Guerrero is there in Chris Benoit's corner and tries to interfere for Benoit, but Booker T is able to fight him off, and when the ref gets distracted by Eddie Guerrero, Big Show is able to interfere and choke slam Booker T and leave the ring. And this allows Benoit to pin Booker T for the win, and it is set the finals of the tournament. It is Chris Benoit representing Raw versus Rikishi representing SmackDown at Vengeance for the United States Championship. And so later on SmackDown, there's a contract signing backstage because I don't want to have the big contract signing in front of audience where someone could potentially be put through a table. I don't want that. And so later, that next Raw, because this happens maybe a week before the Go Home SmackDown. So on the Go Home Raw, Rikishi appears and distracts Benoit during a 6-man tag team match, but it does not to the point where Benoit loses the match. Now on the Go Home SmackDown, Benoit and Guerrero come down and beat down Rikishi after his match with Benoit standing tall. And so now we're at Vengeance, where we have the United States title match. Rikishi versus Benoit opens the show, replacing what actually opened the show, which was the Dudley Boys versus Benoit and Guerrero. So this match, Rikishi versus Benoit, goes for about 15 minutes, and it's a good back and forth affair, and it ends with Benoit distracting the ref. Eddie Guerrero enters the ring and tries to hit Rikishi with the chair, but Rikishi is able to hit a super kick into the chair, right into Guerrero's face, and Rikishi hits Benoit with a super kick, and followed by the bonsai drop to get the win. Rikishi is the new WWE United States Champion, and he makes the title exclusive to SmackDown. Now, after that, it is time to lead up to SummerSlam, because Brock Lesnar and The Rock are doing their thing for SummerSlam. We gotta focus on what Rikishi's doing with the U.S. title. And so Stephanie McMahon calls Rikishi to her office, and she tells Rikishi that she's trying to find the perfect opponent for him to defend against. But in the meantime, she has him defend the belt against Albert, Reverend Devon, and Deacon Batista. And also during this period, he's also getting visibly frustrated on having to defend the title this many times. He even threatens to go to Raw with the title, but Stephanie tells him that the title is exclusive to SmackDown and that he's unable to leave the brand of SmackDown. But because that he's threatened to leave SmackDown, she has Chris Benoit appear with the Intercontinental Championship with Eddie Guerrero. And again, because Rikishi sees Benoit on SmackDown, he goes to Stephanie and asks, "Why is Benoit here with the IC belt? I'm your champion. I'm the champion here." And Stephanie tells him, like, "Hey, you threatened to leave, so I just wanted to have a backup plan just in case your threat became a reality." And so following all this, she books Rikishi in a match against Brock Lesnar. This is after the defenses, and this is like 2 weeks before SummerSlam. She books Rikishi in a match against Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar defeats Rikishi easily. And Stephanie is visibly upset at him losing, but Rikishi stands up for himself and is like, "Hey, that's one loss. I've been able to defend the belt successfully. That is just one loss that I have." But Stephanie still tells Rikishi that she's trying to find an opponent for him for SummerSlam, and she will announce who Rikishi's opponent will be next week. And so now we're at the go-home SmackDown for SummerSlam, and Rikishi is placed in a tag team match with John Cena against Reverend Devon and Deacon Batista. And Rikishi single-handedly takes control of this match and wins the match basically by himself. And Stephanie talks to Rikishi about his attitude during the match because he was very focused, not the Rikishi that we were used to, not the dancing all the time. No, he was focused. He was like, "No, I'm gonna win this match." And because his attitude, like, she was a little nervous and talks to him about his attitude, but Rikishi tells her that he's just tired of being forced to defend his title, and he said that he's going to determine when he defends his title. But Stephanie corrects him and tells him that he will be defending the belt at SummerSlam, like she originally planned. And then right after that, he just asks who he's beating, because he's basically thinking, no matter who you put me up against, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna defend the title, so who is it gonna be? And Stephanie tells him that she didn't just find one opponent for him. She found two. And Rikishi will be defending his belt against Eddie Guerrero and Edge at SummerSlam. And so we're at SummerSlam. Edge and Eddie are focusing on each other because of their rivalry at this point. However, Rikishi is coming in as a massive monster and is using his strength to put both men in their place. And for the finish of this match, Edge and Eddie are focusing on fighting each other after Rikishi is forced out of the ring. And after reversing a top rope arm drag, Edge is able to bounce off the ropes and spears Edge. But then Edge is able to notice that Rikishi is getting back into the ring, and Edge drop kicks Rikishi out of the ring. Edge goes for the pin on Eddie and gets the victory, becoming the new United States Champion. But because of this, Rikishi just stares up at Edge when he's celebrating, and he just kicks the ring steps in anger. So the next SmackDown comes around, and Rikishi wants his rematch. However, Stephanie states that Edge has already fought that night, and Rikishi is fuming. But Stephanie mentions that Rikishi is the next person that Eddie Guerrero must face in the WWE Championship Contendership Series that night. If Rikishi is able to beat Eddie Guerrero, he'll get his rematch. And Rikishi accepts and leaves. Meanwhile, Eddie is taunting Edge about how Edge doesn't deserve to be the United States Champion because Edge is Canadian. And that further expands upon their feud. And even Eddie saying, like, "Hey, I beat you already tonight. I beat you in the opening match of this contendership series. If the title was on the line, I'd be the U.S. champion." And Edge said, basically saying, "No, hey, the title wasn't on the line, so you're not the champion." And Eddie, again, furthering that feud that is building up. So Rikishi and Eddie later on face each other one-on-one. And Rikishi introduces the sit-out Tiger Bomb as his new finisher, now known as the Samoan Bomb. So Rikishi is able to beat Eddie, securing a rematch against Edge for the next week. Unfortunately, Rikishi loses to Chris Benoit later that night, but he doesn't care about losing in the WWE Championship Contendership match. All he is focused on is getting the United States title back, because he wants his title back. And so the next SmackDown comes around, but the rematch doesn't happen. No, instead, Stephanie decides to do a 6-man tag team match with Rikishi and Edge on the same team, with both of them teaming up with The Undertaker. And Rikishi isn't a big fan of this idea, but he goes along with it anyway. and his team wins the match, but the entire time Rikishi just is keeping his eyes on the US title. And now, the very next week, it is time for the United States title rematch. And this is the main event. This is the main event of this SmackDown. Rikishi versus Edge. Then Rikishi, this entire match, starts out strong, and his happy-go-lucky attitude is gone. He is determined. He wants the title back. He wants his title. And during the finish, Rikishi super kicks Edge, and that causes Edge to accidentally bump into the ref. And the ref is a bit dazed as Eddie Guerrero comes out and hits Edge with a chair. And before the referee turns around, Eddie tosses the chair to Rikishi and runs out of the ring. And once the ref turns around, he sees that Edge is on the ground and Rikishi is holding a steel chair. And because of this, the referee declares Edge the winner via disqualification. And Rikishi just turns around and stares down at Eddie, and he starts shouting at him, basically saying, like, you cost me the title, you cost me everything, you cost me my title. But Eddie just walks away laughing, and that's how we end that SmackDown. And so the next week, and this is sort of the go-home before Unforgiven, Rikishi walks into Stephanie's office wanting another rematch against Edge that night, but she is hesitant to give him that rematch. So instead of giving him the rematch, because she knows that Rikishi didn't actually lose the match on his own accord, she gives him a number one contendership match. And the winner gets to face Edge at Unforgiven. And his opponent will be Eddie Guerrero. And Eddie and Rikishi have a good match in my mind, but due to outside interference from Chavo Guerrero, Eddie is able to pick up the victory to face Edge for the United States title at Unforgiven. And at Unforgiven, Edge and Eddie wrestled the same match that they actually had at the actual Unforgiven pay-per-view, and Eddie is able to pick up the victory to become the new WWE United States Champion. Following this, Eddie starts taunting everyone with his United States Championship. He's showing it to everyone. He's like, oh, look at me. I'm the champion. Basically showing and trying to make it seem like he's the better champion compared to Brock Lesnar, saying like his belt is more important. While also at the same time when he's doing that, he's trying to advance in the WWE Tag Team Championship Tournament. And so the one person that he taunts the most during that entire time is Rikishi. And this causes Rikishi to attack Eddie at every opportunity he can. And this would lead to both of them facing off against each other at No Mercy for the United States Championship. And Eddie tries to use his own tactics, but Rikishi has them all scouted and uses his new attitude to beat down Eddie. And Rikishi is able to pick up the victory after a Samoan bomb to become a two-time WWE United States Champion. Now, there's another title match that happens in between No Mercy and Survivor Series, but that's at Rebellion 2002, where Rikishi would successfully defend against Albert in a quick match. But the next big feud that happens for the title would be Rikishi versus John Cena at Survivor Series. And John Cena, around this time, is when he's really starting his rapper gimmick and all, and starting to get over as a heel because of this gimmick. And so Rikishi is really harsh against it, and he wouldn't be having any of it. And at Survivor Series, Rikishi would basically squash John Cena to defend the United States Championship. And so the next big match after Survivor Series for the United States title would be at Armageddon, where the beef between Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero would blow over to the United States Championship. And Eddie would want to become a two-time champion as well, while Benoit wants to be able to get his loss against Rikishi back. Because the last time Benoit and Rikishi really fought each other one-on-one, then again, I did just say that Benoit beat Rikishi in the WWE Championship Contendership Series. So, but nonetheless, Benoit wants to be able to get the United States Championship, to get that singles loss for that title back at Vengeance 2002. And so the three would have a triple threat match, and it would be a very close match until Rikishi hits the Samoan bomb on Eddie, basically taking him out of the match, and Benoit would lock the crippler crossface on Rikishi, and Rikishi would have to tap out to have Chris Benoit become the new United States Champion. And so the SmackDown after Armageddon, that rematch would happen with Benoit retaining. And this time would be the start of a dark time in the United States Championship run, because Benoit was attached to a lot of main event level feuds, to where the story for him would be that he would want to be double belted. He would want to be the WWE champion and the United States Champion, because at the Royal Rumble, he would face Kurt Angle, where he would lose, and then at the way out, he fought in a tag team match with Brock Lesnar versus Angle and someone else. I forgot who Kurt Angle teamed up with at No Way Out 2003. And also Chris Benoit and Rhino would team up to face for the tag team titles at WrestleMania 19. So it would be a lot of Chris Benoit being a little busy with other storylines. So he's unfortunately able to not defend the United States Championship. But, however, that would lead us to Backlash 2003, where he would actually finally defend the United States Championship against Rhino. And that feud would mainly be a friendly rivalry thing, with the two showing respect for each other, and the match would end with Benoit retaining the U.S. Championship. And so again, after that, Benoit would still be wrapped up in other feuds to preoccupy him until we ultimately lead up to Vengeance 2003, where Benoit would defend the title against Eddie Guerrero, where, in real life, Eddie would win the match and become the new United States Champion, except this time Eddie would be a two-time champion instead of winning it for the first time ever. And that's my fantasy booking of the United States Championship if it debuted at Vengeance 2002. What are your thoughts on the idea? I understand that I didn't go more in-depth with the ideas post Unforgiven, but the early months like Vengeance, SummerSlam, Unforgiven, No Mercy, really those early months were the times that I really wanted to focus on to help promote the title as a major championship, because also like the IC title was around, and I know in real life the IC title was basically merged with the World Heavyweight title. However, in my universe, when I'm doing this idea, in my head the IC title is not merged with the World Heavyweight title. No, they're keeping that separate, and so Raw has the IC title as their mid-card, and SmackDown has the US title as their mid-card. That's just what's going on in my head. And I really wanted to promote the US title to be on par with the IC title. And I think with the early months, I think I did that. But that's just me. But what storyline would you like to see me fantasy book next month? Because again, this is a monthly show. And I want to know your thoughts. I want to know what you want me to do next month, because it's really hard coming up with ideas every single month. So again, whatever your thoughts, post them in the comments down below. And don't forget to hit the like button to help get this video out to people to watch. I really want this video to get to people. I even want Adam Blampied to watch this video. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Take care.